AEW Revolution is in the history books, and it's safe to say that show was a banger. I've always said this, but AEW is literally the master of producing pay-per-views. Like, they never miss. Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita, Andrade versus Bandito, the Texas Deathmatch, I mean, come on. Ronda Rousey made her AEW debut, and it sparked a mixed reaction on social media. A lot of AEW fans do not want Ronda Rousey to be a part of AEW, but hold your breath, she's not even signed yet. But I will say, even though I did not enjoy Ronda Rousey's second run in WWE, I actually think it's kind of smart for AEW to bring in Ronda Rousey, especially during this period of time, considering the fact that she has a big fight with Gina Carano on Netflix in May. Is this a one-off? We do not know. Is this run going to even be good? I have absolutely no freaking idea. If it's bad, I'll tell you it's bad. Randy Orton, as expected, turned heel, and I don't care what anybody says, that was a fantastic segment. The way that they produced that heel turn was just off the chain. The idea that Brock Lesnar would probably refuse to lose to guys like Obafemi or Gunther, to me, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Do I think he's going to be retiring this year? Yes. But is it going to happen? We do not know. But one thing is certain, he should not beat Obafemi, and he should not beat Gunther.
The recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Get stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah! Kurt Angle, yeah! Why, Triple H, you son of a tell me why! And Tony Khan, this is also on you!
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over it!
We are on the heels of AEW Revolution 2026, AEW's first pay-per-view of the new year. You know, we got Dynasty next month. We got Double or Nothing taking place in May, but this was their first pay-per-view of 2026. And of course, it took place at the Staples Center. I refuse to call it the Crypto.com Arena, but it took place at the Staples Center, and the fans definitely showed up for this show. A sellout crowd. And yes, it was a sellout crowd. Oh, but it was an arena of 20,000 people. Well, you don't take into account the staging and everything. I mean, the grifting was absolutely insane. The amount of people that were upset that the amount of people that were upset about the fact that this show was a real sellout was crazy to me. But yes, this show was a sellout. This show was a sellout. If WWE drew the same amount of people, which they would have drawn the same amount of people or have drawn more, that includes the staging and everything, everybody would have called it a sellout anyway. The fact that people are mentioning that, oh, the Crypto.com Arena only holds 20,000 people and they only drew 12. I'm like, are you guys brain dead? Like, are you guys legitimately brain dead? You don't take into account the staging and everything. Like, it's insane. It's insane. Oh, but you were crapping on TNA when they drew 8,000 people at the UBS Arena, and you said the UBS Arena held well over 10,000, well over 15,000 people. Yeah, I did. Because let's be real with ourselves. 8,000 people, 12,000 people, let's be honest, 12 to 13,000 people in an arena that holds 20,000 is better than 8,000 people that holds well over 15,000 people. Let's be honest with ourselves. And not only that, TNA wouldn't have gotten to that 8,000 number. They wouldn't have gotten to that 8,000 number if it wasn't for the announcement that AJ Styles was going to show up on that show. AEW consistently draws fantastically when it comes to attendance, when it comes to their pay-per-views. That sentence made no sense. But they draw consistently well on pay-per-view. That is a fact. If you look at their attendance, just look at it. They draw consistently well on pay-per-view. And in terms of pay-per-view buys, they draw consistently well. Now, granted, Dave Meltzer is the one that gives out the numbers, but where else are you going to, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But from what it looks like, AEW draws consistently well on pay-per-view. Now, in terms of weekly television, that's a different story. The majority of the time that AEW was struggling to sell tickets was really their weekly TV. In terms of their pay-per-views, they always drew consistently well. They always drew consistently well. But in terms of Revolution 2026, what was my thoughts on this show? What were my thoughts on this show? I thought this show was easily the best pay-per-view of 2026 so far. And I know that's going to get a lot of people upset. We're only in March. Why are you talking about the pay-per-view of the year? Why are you saying that this was the pay-per-view of the year so far? Well, we had two pay-per-views this year, that being the Royal Rumble and the Elimination Chamber. Both of those shows were not home runs. I actually think that the Elimination Chamber, or the Royal Rumble, I should say, was much better than the Elimination Chamber. The Elimination Chamber, in my opinion, was a dud. Royal Rumble was kind of, in a way, the precursor of what we are going to be seeing next year at WrestleMania, because WrestleMania next year is going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia. That was like the precursor of what's to come, next year. And it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. I've always said this on this show, and I've stated this for years. AEW is literally the masters of pay-per-view. They are. They are literally the masters of pay-per-view besides the UFC. 100%. They are the masters of pay-per-views besides the UFC. WWE, and ever since they've gone to ESPN, ever since the PLEs moved to ESPN, they call these pay-per-views premium live events. These shows do not feel premium whatsoever. It's constant commercials after commercials after commercials, but yet you pay $30 a month for a quote-unquote premium event. This show, if you have HBO Max, you only pay $40. This felt more premium than a PLE. This felt more premium than a PLE. Now, granted, I didn't spend the $40 on this show. I actually used a VPN and watched this show on DAZN. Now, HBO Max is actually another story that we're actually going to talk about later on this show, but there was a lot of technical problems on the HBO Max side. Thank God I did not watch that on HBO Max, but I watched it on DAZN via VPN, and I only paid like $26, which is a great deal. And I thought the quality on the show was fantastic. But in terms of this show from a visual standpoint, and look, I'm somebody who is constantly crapped on AEW's production. I'm not saying their production is horrible. I'm just saying, sometimes when I crap on them for stupid things that they do, like, missing a couple of shots, making things look so fake. Like, AEW tends to make stupid mistakes when it comes to their production. I will say this. There was a lot of production upgrades when it comes to this show. When it came to this show, there were a lot of production upgrades. And from a visual standpoint, the show looked beautiful. And I'm going to go on a limb and say this. The crowd felt more alive than last year's Revolution. Last year's Revolution took place in the same arena. But the crowd felt more alive this year than they did last year. They did. And from the first match on the main card all the way until the end. Now, granted, in the middle they were kind of dead a little bit, but the crowd still felt more alive, in my opinion. The card was absolutely stacked. Most of the matches delivered 110%. And that's the thing about AEW. They give you way too much, and I know what some people are going to say, and I'm going to say it as well. This show went on a little bit too long. Keep in mind, the Oscars was happening. The Oscars was going on at the same time as this show. I believe right across the street from the Crypto.com arena. And that show ended 2 hours before Revolution ended, which is crazy. But in terms of Revolution, again, this card was stacked from top to bottom, and visually the show was beautiful. They tested out new cameras, which was great. One minor complaint that I have from the production side, they constantly, whenever a big moment would happen, they would constantly use those new cameras to really show the crowd, but they would always zoom into one person, which was annoying to me. And you don't need to have those types of shots for every crazy moment that happens, but that is just me. But in terms of the production side, Revolution visually was fantastic. The crowd felt really alive in terms of this show. Overall, I thought Revolution was just a fantastic show. From top to bottom, it was a fantastic show, and we are going to be discussing it right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Hey, this is the WrestleHavoc Podcast. I am yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, on this Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this edition of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. We're going to be talking about a lot of things on this show, but primarily we are going to be discussing AEW Revolution. That was the big pay-per-view that took place this past Sunday, and we're going to be going in depth, and we're going to be giving a recap about AEW Revolution right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Before we get into all of this craziness, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, if you guys are watching this very podcast on WNN platforms, I thank you guys so much for watching me on those platforms as well. Without any further ado, let's talk about all things professional wrestling. All right, we're going to start off by discussing AEW Revolution. AEW Revolution, of course, took place this past Sunday at the Crypto.com arena. We had phenomenal matches. The crowd was absolutely energetic. Of course, it was in the West Coast. It was in Los Angeles, California, and we had a lot of returns and major debuts. Yes, major debuts. We had, of course, the returns of Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, Will Ospreay. Yes, the Billy Goat, Will Ospreay, the best wrestler in the world. I don't care what anybody says. The best wrestler in the world made his return at Revolution, and he looks to be cleared. We also had, yes, hear me out, we had the debut of Ronda Rousey. A lot of mixed emotions, a lot of mixed reactions when it comes to Ronda Rousey, and we will be talking about that on this edition of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. I have my thoughts on Ronda Rousey, and I'm definitely not going to act like a hypocrite on this show. But we're gonna be talking about that as well. But we had phenomenal matches. We had great moments on this show, and we had a phenomenal main event between MJF and Hangman Adam Page in the Texas Deathmatch. MJF retains the AEW World Championship in the Texas Deathmatch, defeating Hangman Page the same way Hangman Page defeated Jon Moxley not once, but twice. We're going to be talking about that on this edition of the podcast as well. But without any further ado, let's get straight into talking about AEW Revolution. Of course, the production side of Revolution, I already talked about. The show was, visually, really good. But in terms of the main card, we're only going to talk about the main card. I didn't watch the pre-show. I never watch the pre-shows for anything, like for any show, whether that is a WWE show, an AEW show, or a TNA show. I never watch the pre-shows because, again, they're just kind of useless. I always tune in right into the main card. That's just me when it comes to pay-per-views. But in terms of Revolution, let's go through this show card by card, match by match. The first match on the main card was FTR taking on the Young Bucks for the AEW World Tag Team titles. Of course, FTR are the defending champions. And when they announced this match, of course, I kind of already knew that the Young Bucks were feuding with FTR. But when they announced this match, I was kind of like, why are we getting another FTR versus Young Bucks match? We've had so many different FTR versus Young Bucks matches. In my opinion, the two best FTR and Young Bucks matches were, of course, the one they had during the pandemic, which was their first match back at Full Gear 2020. And I always call it the Dynamite after WrestleMania, because this was right off the heels of, I believe, Supercard of Honor, which took place a couple days before WrestleMania, and that was when they recently purchased Ring of Honor. But FTR versus the Young Bucks took place, and this is coming off the heels of FTR having that phenomenal first match with the Briscoes. That match was off the chain as well. And then, of course, they wrestled at All In, the first AEW All In, technically the second, but the first All In at Wembley Stadium. They wrestled the Young Bucks as well, and it was not really the best match, kind of like the weakest match of all those matches. And of course, they wrestled here. Correct me if I'm wrong if I missed any other Young Bucks and FTR match, but I'm going on the fly with this. But FTR and the Young Bucks, when they announced this match, I was kind of I was like, ugh, we're getting another FTR and Young Bucks match. I wasn't really as excited about it. And that being said, fans love the Young Bucks again, man. I've always been a big Young Bucks fan, but I'm going to be honest. I've always said this about the Young Bucks ever since Brawl Out. I mean, I felt like the popularity of the Young Bucks kind of diminished. And, their heel run as the evil EVPs, in my opinion, was deemed a failure. Like, I was not really that, big into what they were doing. And I know a lot of people hated that ending at the end of Dynasty. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. I wasn't as upset as a lot of other people were. They were calling that Dynasty ending the worst ending to an AEW pay-per-view. I genuinely believe the ending for Revolution last year was worse than the Dynasty ending, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I genuinely believed that, like, the ending of with Christian Cage cashing in his contract and then losing, like, that whole thing made no sense. On top of that, the match between Adam Copeland and Jon Moxley was just absolutely, the drizzling shits. It was not the best match ever. It was a terrible match. But a lot of people hated the Young Bucks for it. I mean, but then they had that phenomenal match against Swerve and Ospreay at All In. Then they did their whole broke buck shtick where, the Young Bucks, in kayfabe relinquished their EVP status, and then, they became broke, and that was a pretty good storyline, and now they're baby faces. The Young Bucks looked phenomenal in this match. They looked great. FTR, of course, easily one of the best tag teams in the world. I will never deny that, and I will always debate somebody as to who is the best tag team in the world. People will tell me the Usos. I'm gonna be like, no, it's FTR. But in terms of this match, this was a phenomenal opener. I really enjoyed this match for what it was. Of course, they kind of went the personal route with, FTR attacking the family members of the Young Bucks, and the Young Bucks had a phenomenal entrance on this show. They came out with a lot of their family members, and of course, this is kind of a homecoming because they're from Rancho Cucamonga, and that's, I believe, like an hour or two away from where they were at the Staples Center. But, and yes, I'm calling it the Staples Center. But this match was really good. There were times where I thought the Young Bucks were actually going to go over in this match, but they actually did not. But FTR ends up winning retaining, I should say, the AEW World Tag Team titles. This is a fantastic opener, in my opinion. I really enjoyed this opening match, and you can tell the crowd was definitely invested in this match, and they were really invested throughout this whole show from the start. Toni Storm versus Marina Shafir. Everybody was banned from ringside. This was not the best match, but it was not a bad match. But I will say, I wish I could have seen a little bit better. I like Toni Storm, but I feel like the popularity of Toni Storm is slowly starting to fade away. I still like Toni Storm, don't get me wrong, but I kind of want more from Toni Storm. I've been seeing the same shtick since 2023. I want to see more from Toni Storm. But Marina Shafir, was this her best match? No. But I will say this. If there is any wrestler, any, male or female that has improved drastically, it's Marina Shafir. And I think, Marina Shafir, ever since joining the Death Riders, has really, been to her benefit. Like, it has benefited her greatly. Marina Shafir looked absolutely fantastic in this match. She's definitely improved a lot. I can vividly remember back in like 2022 where everybody, including myself, and I'll be the first one to admit, would always crap on Marina Shafir because like she's just not that good. But then ever since joining the Death Riders, I mean, you can tell she has put in the work, and she's also been putting in the work in the independent scene as well. Marina Shafir has been absolutely fantastic. But Toni Storm ended up getting the win over Marina Shafir. But after this, what happened? Well, Toni Storm is souring in the moment on the stage, and a random woman comes out to the ring. And that woman ended up being Ronda Rousey. Yes, the rowdy one, the former WWE Women's Champion, the former UFC Champion, Ronda Rousey, who, by the way, is going to have a big fight with Gina Carano in May on Netflix, and that is going to be a big deal Francis Ngannou is going to be on that card. Nate Diaz was just announced to be on that card as well. I mean, MVP is really making strides as to being the alternative to the UFC. But that's another story for another time. But Ronda Rousey made an appearance on this show, and she had a crazy face-off. I don't want to say crazy because I don't want to hype this up too much. But she had a face-off with Toni Storm. And a lot of mixed reactions with a lot of people. A lot of mixed reactions amongst the fan base. A lot of people in the fan base are pointing out to some of the past things that, Ronda Rousey has stated in terms of, not even her political stance, but just things that happened in the world. In my opinion, look, if AEW wants to bring in Ronda Rousey, they can bring in Ronda Rousey. Some people are pointing her as a possible cancer in the locker room. I even had a friend text me saying, "Oh, this is worse than CM Punk being in the locker room, and she's gonna be a cancer in the locker room." And I'm listening to these people, and I'm like, "Chill. She's not even signed to AEW. She didn't even get the All Elite graphic yet. Do I think she will get the All Elite graphic? I have no idea. People need to understand this is not her first time working in anything related to Tony Khan. She actually made an appearance in Ring of Honor a couple of years ago. People forget, but she actually made an appearance for Ring of Honor a couple of years ago. I believe it was in 2023 or 2024. Correct me if I'm wrong. But she made an appearance in Ring of Honor, so she knows Tony Khan. In terms of Ronda Rousey coming out, what is my thoughts on this? What are my thoughts on Ronda Rousey showing up at Revolution? Do I think she's going to be wrestling full-time for AEW? I don't think so. I don't think she's even going to be wrestling at least for the next month and a half. Considering, again, she has a big fight with Gina Carano, and she should prioritize her fight rather than professional wrestling. That's just my opinion. Now, from the business standpoint, people need to understand that even now, even though she's nowhere near the level of a big star as she was back in the mid-2010s, and trust me, she was huge. Like, the mainstream appeal that the name Ronda Rousey had back then, that being 10 plus years ago, was insane. When she made it to the UFC, because she fought, of course, in Strikeforce, but she came into the UFC, and, she became a huge mainstream star. Like, insanely huge mainstream star. Do I think she has that same name value? No. Did I enjoy her run? Both of her runs in the WWE? I actually enjoyed her first run, and that's not saying much, more than I did her second run. I thought her second run in the WWE was absolutely atrocious. And that's largely due to the fact that Ronda Rousey, every time when she cut a promo, she felt like she just did not want to be there. And you can tell. She didn't. A lot of people even say, like, she didn't enjoy wrestling. She didn't enjoy the business. Becky Lynch was very, very, very vocal about Ronda Rousey. And look, I still hold those criticisms of Ronda Rousey. I felt like she didn't want to be there. But if her going to AEW is a sense of her wanting to be there, I'm totally fine with it. But if she's only there and the moment I see her cut a promo and that promo is not good, I'm going to say she's garbage. But again, this is only the first show. But that does not excuse the fact that, like, I did crap on Ronda Rousey in her last WWE run. Her last match, I believe, was at SummerSlam in 2023. And that match was not good at all. It was like an MMA style fight. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was against Shayna Baszler. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it was not a good match whatsoever. Ronda Rousey, it was smart for WWE to bring in Ronda Rousey in 2018 because, again, she had that mainstream appeal. But again, she was great in the ring, but in terms of her promo skill, she was just atrocious. Atrocious, in my opinion. But let's see what happens over here in AEW. Now, people need to understand, again, she's not signed to AEW as of right now. Do I think AEW will sign her? Maybe, but, the chances of that possibly happening, I don't know. But she is not signed to AEW, and already people are jumping the gun. People are jumping in the gun. She hasn't even signed a contract. Mystico just signed with AEW. He got the All Elite graphic. Ronda Rousey did not get the All Elite graphic. Once she gets signed, then you can, express your criticisms. Or better yet, once she cuts a promo, express your criticisms of Ronda Rousey. But again, the people that are crapping on Ronda Rousey, and look, I'm not defending Ronda Rousey in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying, I'm pointing out just the hypocrisy. If you guys, I mean, I assume a lot of wrestling fans know that she has a big fight with Gina Carano. If you don't, clearly all you watch is wrestling and you don't watch anything else. You don't follow what's going on necessarily in the combat sports world. And look, I'm not a big MMA fan. I'm not a big boxing guy, but I've been keeping tabs about what's been going on in that area. You know, if you are one of those people that, you know, watched, you know, Ronda Rousey, or, you know, we're watching Ronda Rousey, you know, say the things she said at the press conference, at the MVP press conference, and didn't say anything, and all of a sudden she comes into AEW and then you express your opinions. I'm like, you're kind of a hypocrite. But that's just me. If you disagree with me, that's fine. But in terms of the business standpoint of them bringing in Ronda Rousey, the name Ronda Rousey still holds name value. It does. It does still hold name value. And it's kind of smart on AEW to bring her in at this time, because they could possibly have a chance to cross-promote with MVP. Because whether you like it or not, and I don't care what anybody says, say what you want about the fight that she's going to have with Gina Carano. Look, Ronda's in her late 30s. Gina's in her early 40s. You know, it looks like it's going to be, you know, a lot of people kind of view it as a shit show. But at the same time, believe it or not, and I don't care what anybody says, everybody's going to watch that fight because it's on Netflix. It's catering to a casual audience. And if AEW plays their cards right and they want to bring in maybe a Gina Carano to do maybe some sort of angle with her and Gina, I mean, look, it's smart business on their end. Does that mean that Ronda Rousey is going to wrestle? I have no idea. We're going to have to wait and see. But, you know, a lot of mixed reactions. And look, if you're not happy with Ronda Rousey, that's fine. I'm just pointing out, you know, the hypocrisy. If this had happened in WWE, I mean, nobody would bat an eyelash. Now, am I excited about Ronda Rousey showing up in AEW? Part of me, yes. A part of me, no. Because I've seen her work in WWE, and her work in WWE, especially in that second run, was atrocious. But I'm going to give her a shot. If she's good, she's good. If she's still the same Ronda Rousey that we saw back in 2021, forget about it. But that's just me. Or in 2022, I should say. 2022. I believe 2022 was where she made her return. Correct me if I'm wrong. She made a return in 2022 and won the Royal Rumble. I completely forgot about that, but it is what it is. But yeah, that was my thoughts on Ronda Rousey's return. Look, AEW has a chance to capitalize on the hype around, you know, Gina versus Ronda. And look, there's no denying everybody's going to be watching that show. Regardless of how the fight does, everybody's going to be watching that show because, again, MVP is in the business of making big events. You know, Netflix is in the business of making big events. Say what you want about the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight. Everybody watched regardless, and it was deemed a success. Regardless of what you thought about the fight, they got their payday, and at the same time, people watched that show because it's Mike Tyson. It's going to be the same thing with Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano. It's the same shit. The same thing. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Ronda Rousey showing up in AEW. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments down below. Do you think this is a smart idea or a bad idea on AEW's end to bring in Ronda Rousey in the midst of, you know, her preparing for her fight against Gina Carano in May? Moving on, we had Jon Moxley taking on Konosuke Takeshita for the AEW Continental Championship. Of course, this is a rematch to the match that they had at Grand Slam Australia, which ended in a time limit draw. And there was going to be no time limit in this match. This match was one of the more hyped matches for this show. And I'm going to tell you, this match was freaking awesome. There was a moment in this match where Moxley and Takeshita basically traded suplexes. Like one guy suplexed the other guy and vice versa. It was such an awesome spot. Takeshita, I've always said this about Takeshita. Takeshita is one of the best wrestlers in the world today. You know, him, Will Ospreay are one of the best wrestlers in the world. Takeshita has, you know, is a future main event guy. I think he's going to carry AEW. I think he's a future AEW world champion. I mean, he's a former IWGP world champion. I mean, what more do you have? But in terms of Moxley, man, look at Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley, think about this. Jon Moxley went from being literally the most hated man, not only in AEW, but one of the most hated men in all of wrestling, to one of the most beloved guys, not only in AEW, but in all of wrestling. Last year, he had one of the worst matches of the year with Adam Copeland. It was just not a good match. That main event on a show like Revolution sucked. It was a terrible match with a terrible finish. Fast forward a year later, Jon Moxley is a babyface, even though the Death Riders are still relatively heels. And by the way, I completely forgot to mention, Ronda Rousey is still not still friends, but she's friends with Marina Shafir. That's another reason as to why she's there. But in terms of the Death Riders, the Death Riders are heels and Jon Moxley is the babyface. I kind of like that dynamic. Jon Moxley, ever since World's End, has been on a different level, and he's been delivering fantastic matches. This match was no different. Now, the outcome of this match, a lot of people were kind of on the fence about. And the reason why I say that is because everybody expected Konosuke Takeshita to go over and beat Jon Moxley. And Jon Moxley ended up retaining his title. My question about this is, where are we going to go with Konosuke Takeshita from here on out? It's very simple. I know where we're going to go. Well, there's another guy by the name of Kazuchika Okada, and they've only had one match, and that match was at World's End. I assume we're probably going to get that second match at Double or Nothing. We're going to have a trilogy of matches. We only had one match between the two. And that first match between Takeshita and Okada was not really their best foot forward. And I feel like they did that intentionally because, whenever you have a trilogy of matches, you always want to stride for, you really want to put your best foot forward in that second and third match. And I think they will definitely give you, that was only a glimpse. That first match was literally a glimpse of what we were going to see in the future in regards to Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada. My prediction is that we're going to be getting a match between the two at Double or Nothing, and then their last match, their final match, I believe, in my prediction, is going to culminate at All In. That's what I see happening. But the ongoing story is with Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada. I see that being, the direction in terms of Konosuke Takeshita. What's the direction for Jon Moxley? Well, Jon Moxley, even though he retained the title, has a little bit of a beef going on with one Billy Goat himself, that being Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay, by the way, after the match was over, made his return to All Elite Wrestling, and overall, it was a fantastic moment, to say the least. Will Ospreay, I don't care what anybody says, Will Ospreay is basically the top guy of AEW. He is. He is the top guy of AEW. Oh, and by the way, in the sense of returns, I completely forgot to mention, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage returned after the FTR and Young Bucks match. It just came across in my mind. But they made their returns, so that's great to see as well. And they're definitely going to go after FTR for the tag team titles. I completely forgot to mention that. But in terms of the return of Will Ospreay making a return to AEW is fantastic because they definitely need a guy like Will Ospreay. And not only that, the narrative and the storyline is there for him to go after the World Championship at All In, considering, AEW is returning to Wembley Stadium for All In this year. But he's going to go after Jon Moxley for the Continental title first. And my prediction is what I think is going to happen is I think we're going to be getting a match between both Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay at Dynasty next month in Vancouver. And then whoever wins, which honestly, if there's any time to take the belt off of Moxley, I think Will Ospreay is the best guy to take it from. Will Ospreay is literally the best guy to take the belt off of Moxley, in my opinion. That's what I see happening. I see him taking out the taking the Continental title from Moxley, and then we fast forward to the Owen Hart Cup tournament, in which they would have maybe a rematch, and then maybe Ospreay would go over, and then what would happen there? Ospreay would win the Owen, and then he would go after the World Championship. That's what I see happening, but we're going to have to wait and see. But from what it looks like, Ospreay is going to be feuding with Jon Moxley, and my prediction is that we're going to be getting a match between the two next month at Dynasty. But yeah, that was Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita. Moving on, we had Megan Bayne and Lena Cross. Defeated the Babes of Wrath. Yes, Willow Nightingale and Holly Cameron. They are the new AEW Women's Tag Team champions. In my opinion, I didn't really care a lot about this match. I think the work that Holly Cameron and Willow Nightingale have been doing as a tag team, I love their chemistry together, has been great. But at the same time, AEW is in a way kind of building towards the Megan Bayne and Lena Cross. So I totally understand as to why they took the belts off of them. But again, this is a match that I really just didn't really care about at all. And the crowd didn't really seem as interested in this match. Moving on, we had Swerve Strickland taking on Brody King. Of course, originally, what we all initially thought was that we were going to be getting a Kenny Omega versus Brody King. Oh, not Kenny Omega versus Brody King, but Swerve Strickland versus Kenny Omega match, considering Swerve Strickland was feuding with Kenny Omega. And it would make more sense that Kenny was going to fight Swerve in this card. But apparently, due to scheduling conflicts, we didn't get a proper match between the two. And they wrote Kenny Omega off television. By the way, Kenny Omega made a return after this match, but that opened the door for Swerve Strickland to temporarily feud with Brody King. And I thought that was a smart move. The match was really good for what it was, but if you really wanted to establish Swerve Strickland as a heel, I've always said this, Swerve works better as a heel than he does a babyface. I like Swerve as a babyface, but let's be honest with ourselves, he's a much better heel. A much, much, much better heel. Especially at that main event level, he's a much better heel. And he definitely displayed that in this match against Brody King. And Swerve Strickland ended up getting the win. Brody King, looked great in this match as well, but there was no way Brody King was going to go over. There's just no way. If you really wanted to establish Swerve Strickland as a dominant heel, the right way to go, the right move to go was Swerve Strickland going over. But after the match, he was going to grab, of course, a bunch of cinder blocks. And of course, if you mash Swerve Strickland and cinder blocks together, you kind of know what you're going to get. But Kenny Omega came out, made his return after he was written off of television a couple weeks prior. And, of course, made the save. And, of course, Brody King and Kenny Omega stood tall going after Swerve Strickland. Where does this lead to? I think we're going to be getting a rematch between the two. I think we're going to be getting a rematch between Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland. Who knows when? Maybe at Dynasty, maybe at Double or Nothing. Really depends where the build is going to be going. But overall, it was a pretty good match to say the least. Tekla, it was a 2 out of 3 falls match. Tekla defends her AEW Women's title against Chris Statlander. Again, another one of those matches that I just didn't really care about. Again, the crowd just didn't really seem as interested as well. Tekla has been great, but, a lot of people, are admitting, like, Chris Statlander, where's really Chris Statlander's direction? But in terms of this match, I just didn't really care a lot about this match. Just not really as interesting. And no shade on Tekla or Chris Statlander. I just wasn't as interested, but Tekla defeated Chris Statlander in the 2 out of 3 falls match. Jet Speed and Mystico took on the Don Callis family for the Trios titles. Of course, the Don Callis family, I believe, won back the Trios titles a couple weeks prior. And Jet Speed and Mystico got the win. Mystico, by the way, is All Elite. The megastar in Mexico, Mystico, the former Sin Cara, got the All Elite graphic, and it was a great moment for Mystico. He now has one of those dual contracts with not only AEW, but also CMLL as well, so I think it's going to benefit both of them. I think Mystico is fantastic, and I think him being a part of the AEW roster is great as well. Jet Speed and Mystico won the AEW Trios titles. One match that I absolutely loved was Andrade versus Bandito. When they announced this match, I was already excited because I know the caliber of a talent that both Andrade and Bandito are. Bandito is fantastic. He had a phenomenal match with Konosuke Takeshita at Supercard of Honor last year. Andrade, coming off the heels of leaving WWE, has just been on another level. Let's be honest with ourselves. Now, Andrade was always a phenomenal wrestler. Let's be real. He was always a phenomenal wrestler, but I think this new presentation of Andrade shows, like, how do I put it? Andrade's current presentation is basically the final, like, version of Andrade. Like, this is the complete package of Andrade. And Andrade has been killing it ever since returning to AEW. Of course, he was caught into some legal lingo with WWE after making that surprise return to AEW, attacking Kenny Omega. But after that was settled and he came back, he's just been on another level. Andrade actually had a phenomenal match at the New Japan show. He lost, but he still looked really good. Andrade, again, has just been on a freaking tear. And they were just doing things that were just unimaginable. And the last few moments of that Andrade and Bandito match was just off the freaking chain. Of course, Andrade was going to go over. I think it would make no sense for Bandito to go over, but I'm very curious to see what AEW does with Andrade in the future after this, because of course he's a part of the Don Callis family, but he did have his sights on the AEW World Championship, so we're going to have to wait and see what they do with that. But again, man, I'm very excited to see what AEW does with Andrade. We might have a potential main event player in our hands, man. Andrade is the freaking man. Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, and Darby Allin defeated the Dogs, Clark Connors. Yes, my boy Clark Connors, my boy David Finlay, and my boy Gabe Kidd. Do not sleep on Gabe Kidd, by the way. Gabe Kidd, I've always said this. Gabe Kidd is arguably, he's somebody you can market. He's somebody you can market very, very, very well. And I think Gabe Kidd is a future main event guy as well. I don't care what anybody says. He is a future main event guy. But Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, and Darby Allin defeated the Dogs. We're going to be getting a coffin match this Wednesday on Dynamite between Darby Allin and Gabe Kidd as well. So everybody's banned from ringside. But overall, not a bad match. But again, all we cared about was the main event. And the main event was MJF versus Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship in a Texas Deathmatch. And the stipulation is that if Hangman Page loses, it's a stupid stipulation. Dumb babyfaces do this all the time. Remember when Cody did it? It was a stupid move then, and it's a stupid move now. But the stipulation is that if Hangman Page loses, he will never challenge for the AEW World Championship ever again. What were my thoughts on this Texas Deathmatch? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this. This match was fantastic for what it was. For an MJF match, for a Hangman Page match, you kind of know what to expect when you get a Texas Deathmatch. And you kind of know what you're gonna get when MJF is involved in one of these kinds of matches. He's gonna go balls to the wall. That being said, was this the best Texas Death Match that we've seen in AEW? And we've seen a lot of Texas Death Matches in AEW. A lot of them were involving Hangman Page. No, this was not the best Texas Death Match, contrary to what other people are telling you. I genuinely believe that this was not the best Texas Death Match that we've gotten in AEW. I think that goes to the All-In Texas Death Match last year. In my opinion, I think that was the best Texas Death Match that AEW has produced. And AEW has produced phenomenal Texas Death Matches. Before that, the best Texas Death Match that we saw, for me, was either the first Moxley versus Hangman Texas Death Match or the Swerve and Hangman Texas Death Match. Before that, it was the Swerve and Hangman Texas Death Match. But after that All-In, Texas Death Match, I was like, this is by far the best Texas Death Match that we have seen in AEW history. Was this the best Texas Death Match? No, it was not. But by all means, this was not a bad match whatsoever. There was a lot of moments in this match where I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely insane. Hangman Page had the staples and he stapled happy birthday to MJF. They went through tables. They went through barbed wire. Hangman Page literally grabbed a piece of barbed wire and put it in the mouth of MJF and kind of like in a way strangled him via the mouth. and it looked like a smile. It was hilarious. MJF, by the way, was wearing Terry Funk inspired attire, which I really much enjoyed. And I love how on commentary they mentioned that MJF, even though he is a scumbag, he is a student of the game, and he really is. A lot of the stuff that you see MJF do is based off of the stuff that you would see in the territories. And I respect that about MJF. In terms of this match itself, there was a spot where both Hangman Page and MJF both went through the sound system, and it caused a crazy-ass explosion, and you would think that that would be the end of the match. But both men actually got up, which is crazy. Both men actually got up, which is freaking insane. But later on in the match, you kind of saw Hangman Page grabbing the dog collar. Now, when he grabbed it, it looked like it was a chain. Oh, and by the way, there was glass involved as well. There was a part in the match where, Hangman was just dragging MJF from the back and as well as the stomach through the glass. It was insane. Like it was a board. It was basically like a board of glass, and MJF basically destroyed it so he can avoid going through the glass. But Hangman Page was like, "Oh, you don't want to go through the glass? Okay, I'll drag your ass through the glass." That was great stuff right there by Hangman. But in terms of the dog collar, I loved the callbacks, because keep in mind, Revolution for MJF has always been a night of hell for MJF for most Revolutions, because of course 2022 Revolution, that was the dog collar match that he had with CM Punk, which was a fantastic match. I can vividly remember people complaining about the match was way too long, and I'm like, bro, the match told a fantastic story. We were supposed to get a third match between both of them, but it ended up not happening. But it was a fantastic match. And then, of course, the next year, 2023 at Revolution, we got the 1 hour Iron Man match between MJF and Bryan Danielson. Arguably one of the greatest Iron Man matches, not only in AEW, but in wrestling, period. Like, there was a fantastic match. Easily the best match of 2023. One of the best matches of 2023. That, the Sammy Roman match, the tag team match at WrestleMania, like, we had a lot of great matches in 2023, but that was by far one of the best matches of that year. And of course, MJF had not a dog collar match, but a Texas death match with Hangman Page. Revolution has always been the type of show where MJF would always get his ass beat on a consistent level. Like, it's crazy. And I love the callback that, Hangman gave with MJF. I love the callback to the dog collar match, and he connected both of the dog collars to him and MJF. But in the end, I should say, it worked to MJF's benefit, because the finish of the match had MJF basically choke out Hangman Page the same way Hangman Page choked out Jon Moxley, not once, but twice, back at Revolution 2023 and at All In last year. He choked out Hangman Page, and the visual was fantastic. The visual had Hangman Page pass out, fall, and his head hits the lens of the camera, and a splatter of his blood went on the camera. And MJF ended up getting the win. And is still the AEW World Champion. Now, the visual again of MJF holding the title up on that camera, and by the way, the cameraman did not clean off the blood out of the lens, which I thought was a smart move, because again, it created the visual that MJF is a dominant champion, and the blood on that camera lens is Hangman Page's blood, and it was caused by MJF. I love that, storytelling right there. But MJF is still the AEW World Champion. What happens from here? You need to understand that MJF is going to hold on to that title for a significant amount of time. My prediction is I think he's going to hold on to that title all the way till All In. I think Ospreay is going to take the belt off of MJF at All In at Wembley Stadium this August. That's my prediction right there. I don't know why people are upset that Hangman Page lost. Why would you have MJF drop the title this early? He just won it in December. Why are you just going to have him drop the title now? He has so many other challengers waiting. Like, we got Dynasty, we got Double or Nothing, we got Forbidden Door. We got a lot of shows happening, and we're going to get a lot of big main events. But, I mean, it made sense as to why MJF retained the title. Now, my question is, what are we going to do with Hangman Page? Because from what it looks like, Hangman Page is no longer challenging for the AEW World title. Again, it's a stupid stipulation. The same stupid stipulation that Cody put in his match against Chris Jericho at Full Gear in 2019. It's a stupid stipulation. Dumb baby faces, but still. What is AEW going to do with Hangman Page? Are they going to break their promise and just have Hangman Page go into the Owen Hart Cup tournament and win the whole damn thing? I doubt it. Because you got Will Ospreay right freaking there and he's already cleared to wrestle. What are we going to do? But what are they going to do with Hangman Page now that Hangman Page, from what it looks like, is out of the title picture? What are they going to do? What are they going to do with Hangman Page? That is the number one question that I have. But in terms of MJF, you should have known that MJF was going to retain that title. There was no way he was dropping that title on this show. No way. MJF is easily the biggest star in AEW right now. Easily. I don't care. I'm a big Will Ospreay guy, and yes, I've always said this, Will Ospreay is the top guy. But there's a difference between being a top guy and being a top star. There's a difference between being a top guy and a top star, and MJF is that top star. MJF is basically the only superstar that AEW has. A homegrown star that AEW has. Why would you take the belt off of him? Why would you take the belt off of him? Why? AEW made the right decision by having MJF win. I'm just curious about what AEW is going to be doing with Hangman Page. That's just my only concern. Do I have faith in their creative team? I wouldn't have had faith in them 2 years ago, or maybe even a year ago. I actually have more faith in them now. We're going to have to wait and see what happens, but do I think AEW is going to break that promise? I have no friggin' idea, but I'm very curious to see what AEW does with Hangman Page now that he is out of title contention. He's out of title contention, so what is he going to do? But with MJF, there's a lot of other potential, opponents that MJF has. I mean, there's Andrade wanting to go after the world title. Everybody wants to go after the world title. I want to see another MJF versus Kenny Omega match. Like, I really, really, really want to see that, and I think we're going to be getting it. But at the same time, we still, in terms of Kenny Omega, he has to go through Swerve first. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens. I mean, there's so many possibilities as we head towards Dynasty, as we head towards Double or Nothing, as we head towards Forbidden Door, as we head towards All In. All In is basically the culmination of all of this. And there's so many different possibilities, and it makes me really excited. I'm not going to lie. I haven't been more excited about what's been going on in the main event scene for AEW in a while. I'm being honest, and I'm more excited to see what is going on in AEW than WWE right now. I just am. A year ago, I wouldn't have told you otherwise. Like, if I had said that, I would have probably gotten crapped on, but last year was different. Last year, AEW was in a different position. This year, AEW, I feel like they have gotten I feel like they've gotten their shit together. They've definitely gotten a lot of their shit together. Do they still make stupid mistakes? Absolutely. Every promotion makes stupid mistakes. But I think AEW, especially what they have been doing in their main event scene by keeping it focused and by having everybody go after MJF, who, by the way, is holding the top prize in the freaking promotion. Everybody who's in that promotion should be striving to go after the world champion. And that is exactly what AEW has been doing. That is the story that AEW has been telling, and I've been enjoying that. Everything seems fresh, and I like it. I like the main event scene in AEW. That's what's really keeping me intrigued. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to have. Well, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen as we head towards Dynasty, as we head towards, of course, Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing is going to be a big show. It's going to be in a tennis stadium in New York, which I plan on attending. I'm very curious to see what the main event is going to be for that show. We also got All In. Of course, Ospreay is gunning for MJF now. Well, first he's got to get through Moxley first, but then, he wants to go after Max. Everybody, I mean, the Owen Hart Cup tournament, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with the Owen Hart Cup tournament. I'm very excited to see what happens there, but a lot of awesome possibilities, man. I'm very curious to see what happens, but overall, I thought Revolution was a fantastic show. A fantastic show from top to bottom. Easily the best card of 2026 so far. Do I think WrestleMania is going to be a little bit better? I have no idea. WrestleMania hasn't happened. It's going to happen next month. But so far, I think Revolution easily was the best pay-per-view of 2026, and we're only in the month of March. If this gave you any indication of how AEW is going to book their shows, this gave you any indication on how AEW is going to present their pay-per-views, I'm very excited to see what AEW does with Dynasty, what AEW does with Double or Nothing, what AEW does with All In. Because if you thought Revolution was great, how great are going to be these shows? I'm very excited about the future of AEW. I really am. And I'm happy that this company has finally gotten their shit together, basically. They have finally, they still do the stupid mistakes, but like they've realized, like, you know what? We haven't really been hitting on all strides throughout the past couple of years. And I'm glad they've finally woken up. And we're like, you know what? We're going to give you guys direction. And AEW has been giving everybody, they've been giving us direction. And they've been giving us simplicity, especially with that main event scene, which I love. They're not, overcomplicating everything like they used to do, which I really appreciate. But AEW really has been hitting on all strides. But yeah, overall, Revolution was a fantastic show and easily better than the Royal Rumble and better than the Elimination Chamber. Yeah, that was my thoughts on Revolution. Continuing on with the WrestleHavoc Podcast, it is Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. And we are going to be continuing on with this edition of the podcast. And we're going to be talking about WrestleMania 42. Yes, we're going to be talking about WrestleMania once again, considering it is WrestleMania season. Of course, WrestleMania 42 is going to be taking place once again for the second consecutive year in Las Vegas, Nevada at Allegiant Stadium on Saturday, April 18th and Sunday, April 19th. And of course, tickets haven't been selling really well for WrestleMania, but they're slowly starting to pick up, mainly because of the fact that WWE actually had the balls to lower ticket prices. Yes, they actually found the cojones to actually lower their ticket prices, which honestly, was expected, because like nobody, let's be honest, nobody could afford at the rate that WWE and TKO was selling those tickets. At the rate that they were selling those tickets, nobody could afford them. Like, nobody could afford those tickets. And, again, tickets were selling relatively slow compared to last year. And that's simply because of the fact that, again, the economy, not only, like, tourism in Las Vegas in general is down. But, at the end of the day, just everybody kind of saw through TKO's BS. And they were like, yeah, we are not buying tickets. We're not going to be spending thousands upon thousands of dollars for another WrestleMania that most likely is probably going to be lackluster, kind of like last year. Again, the build for this show has been relatively, it's been mainly a dud. Like the build for this year's WrestleMania, if anything, is worse than last year, unfortunately. Ever since, again, and I talked about this when I was talking about Revolution right at the top of the show, but ever since WWE moved all of their PLEs to ESPN, the quality of the premium live events tend to go down. And we saw that with WrestlePalooza. We saw that with Survivor Series. We saw that with the Royal Rumble. And we saw that with the Elimination Chamber. Now, WrestleMania is obviously the biggest show of the year. I think, even though I think the build for this show has been relatively bad, I'm going to be honest, I actually still have hopes for WrestleMania, because normally whenever you get any pay-per-view, whether that is a WWE or an AEW pay-per-view, whenever you have a bad build for a show, and you watch the actual show, 9 times out of 10, the actual show ends up being good. So I still have my fingers crossed in terms of WrestleMania. And I'm going to be honest, WrestleMania season in a way is starting to pick up, a little bit more. We had the heel turn with Randy Orton. Brock Lesnar finally has his opponent. Everybody was waiting on who Brock Lesnar's opponent was going to be, and it ended up being Oba Femi. Roman Reigns and CM Punk had their third segment. A lot of people were kind of disappointed with that segment this past Monday night on Raw. I really wasn't, because again, we still have we have weeks upon weeks left until WrestleMania, and everybody's expecting Roman Reigns to say, mention Larry, go personal. You got to stretch things out, especially with Roman Reigns' limited schedule. You really have to stretch things out. But one of the things I really loved so far about this build between Roman Reigns and CM Punk is, of course, number one, they were going personal. And number two, I loved how they added, Roman's family. I loved how they added the Usos, and they really include the Usos in the mix. But we'll talk about that as we run down the card for WrestleMania 42. Of course, all these are all the official matches that are announced for WrestleMania 42. Of course, we have the undisputed WWE title match between Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. Randy Orton, of course, won the Elimination Chamber a couple of weeks ago and is now facing his longtime friend, Cody Rhodes. And I've talked about this on the last show, but there was no way, absolutely no freaking way, WWE was going to have a babyface versus babyface dynamic. If you look at the crowd reaction that Cody got last year at WrestleMania, Cody got booed out of the building. Let's be real with ourselves. He got booed out of the building. He did. He got booed out of the building. And look, even though, and I talked about how, you know, in a way there's kind of seeds planted for a Cody Rhodes heel turn, and I know everybody's claiming for a Cody Rhodes heel turn. I don't think it's going to be happening now. Like, I think it's either going to be happening later this year, and maybe that's even a little bit too early, or maybe next year. But a Cody Rhodes heel turn, even though, you know, the signs are in a way there, and even though, you know, there's a lot of that Cody fatigue, and trust me, I feel it too. Like, when I was watching Cody Rhodes cut that promo before Randy turned heel on SmackDown, I was like, oh, here we go. It's the same old Cody shtick. Like, I started to get a little bit tired of it. You know what I'm saying? And look, I'm a big Cody Rhodes fan. And look, yes, I don't care what anybody says. I'm a Cody crybaby. But, I mean, the Cody fatigue is still there. The Cody fatigue is still there. But there was no way WWE was going to do a babyface versus babyface dynamic for this match. Absolutely not. Somebody had to go heel, and it was obviously Randy Orton. It made the most sense. Because you're not going to have a babyface Randy Orton going up against a heel Cody Rhodes. It just doesn't make any sense as well. But the heel turn that Randy Orton had on SmackDown last Friday was well executed, brilliantly done, in my opinion, well produced. It was, of course, during the contract signing on the same night where in kayfabe, Drew McIntyre quit WWE in kayfabe, of course, because he lost his WWE title and his reign ended relatively early. But yeah, basically they had a contract signing. And Cody Rhodes was basically putting over Randy Orton as he always does, kind of like, you know, the lame babyface shtick. And Randy Orton, of course, you know, was listening to everything that Cody Rhodes had to say. And he ended up signing the contract only for him to snap on Cody Rhodes, basically slamming his head onto the table where the contract was. And then he was just going to go all out. Like, all out on Cody Rhodes. And what happened was he grabbed the steel steps. He drilled the steel steps through the head of Cody Rhodes. After that, Cody Rhodes was just basically laying on top of the steel steps, and like just the visual of Cody's, you know, Cody's blood. You know, I can remember when Cody was in AEW, everybody joked about how many times Cody Rhodes always bled in his matches. Like, if you watch the Dustin match, if you watch like literally any, you know, major Cody Rhodes match in AEW, he always bled. And it was pretty hilarious. And everybody joked about that. And the same goes for here. Like, Cody Rhodes tends to exaggerate things sometimes. And look, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, I'm saying it in a jokingly manner. He tends to, like, you know, go a little too much when it comes to the blood. Now, granted, this is WWE. This is an AEW. He's not Jon Moxley by any stretch of the means, but still, like, everybody, when he was in AEW, everybody made fun of the fact that Cody Rhodes always bled in his matches. But the visual was there, and it made total sense from a creative standpoint for Cody Rhodes to get color in this match, or in this segment, I should say, in this promo segment. But Cody Rhodes was laying on the top of the steel steps. Oh, not on top of the steel steps, but like his head was laying on the steel steps. And then Randy Orton, of course, like all the producers and everybody, security was coming in. You had Jelly Roll, who, by the way, was a guest appearance on SmackDown. And everybody was complaining about Jelly Roll. I'm like, why are you guys complaining about Jelly Roll? You know, like the same people that are complaining about Jelly Roll are the same people that don't complain about Big Boom AJ and the Costco guys on AEW. Like, it makes no freaking sense. Like, celebrities in wrestling is a good thing. Like, I don't understand. And not only that, Jelly Roll actually likes wrestling. Like, I'd rather have a celebrity that likes wrestling than having a celebrity having a guest appearance on a show that doesn't like wrestling. So I don't know why people are complaining about Jelly Roll. It just makes no sense whatsoever. But Cody is laid out, all bloodied up. Then Randy Orton, Jelly Roll comes to the aid of Cody Rhodes. And what happens is he goes to Randy Orton, and Randy Orton just pushes Jelly Roll. He pushes Jelly Roll. So, like, stuff is getting real. And then Randy Orton, it looks like he's about to leave, but then he comes back and he grabs a chair and he hits it. Now, granted, like, he didn't go like Edge Concerto or anything. I mean, there's a secret as to how the Concerto works, but like, he basically hit the chair, bashed the chair on the head in kayfabe of Cody Rhodes. I guarantee you he didn't hit Cody Rhodes' head. He most likely hit the edge of the steel steps, which is obviously how you're supposed to do it. But the visual was definitely there, and basically hit Cody Rhodes in the head with the chair to close out the show. And then he grabbed the chair, sat in the middle of the ring with the WWE title, ending SmackDown last Friday night. Overall, this was a fantastic segment. A really, really, really good segment to close out the show. By the way, SmackDown sucks as a show. I only watch the main things that happen on the show because there's just really no point in watching SmackDown or even Raw as a whole. People tend to call me biased towards AEW, and but people don't realize, like, I criticize AEW all the freaking time. 9 times out of 10, I will criticize them on a lot of things because they still make a lot of mistakes, even though they're on a better track this year. But like, in terms of like the WWE shows like Raw and SmackDown, I just can't watch those shows in full. I just can't. It's such a difficult watch. I only watch the main segments and the main segments that like take place on the show, the important stuff. And I thought what they did here on Friday was fantastic. I really did. I think Randy, has kind of a new edge to him. I know everybody's loving babyface Randy Orton. Every time when he comes out, everybody's singing his theme. Nostalgia. I mean, nostalgia rules the world nowadays. But this is definitely the perfect way to really kick off a Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes match at WrestleMania. Like, the best way to kick off that feud leading in towards WrestleMania. Because at the end of the day, this year's WrestleMania really had no big storyline going into it. WWE really had a scramble to see what they wanted to do for a lot of these big quote-unquote matches that we're going to be getting at WrestleMania. And this heel turn was definitely the right way to go. Like, it was definitely the right way to go. And I thought the presentation was absolutely fantastic. Whoever produced this is a freaking genius. And that's not saying much, but it was a fantastic segment. We're going to be getting Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. This is not going to be the main event of WrestleMania. This is going to be the main event of night 1, but that's not really the real main event. The real main event of WrestleMania is the main event of night 2. And that, of course, is the World Heavyweight title match between CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Of course, this has really been the main thing that everybody has been interested in, ever since Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble in February. Everybody knew Roman was going to go after CM Punk. The rumored match was Cody versus Roman. And personally, I wouldn't mind that because, again, both of their matches were fantastic, especially that second one. But it would have been a little bit repetitive. And knowing the nature of how the audience is starting to react to Cody, I don't think WWE really wanted to risk, that. Like, they didn't want to risk Cody getting booed profusely for a second time in Las Vegas. Now, granted, I think he's still going to get booed in Las Vegas. I mean, normally WrestleMania season, whoever comes to WrestleMania, mostly every fan that attends WrestleMania is literally the smartest fan in the world. Like, everybody knows, what's going on. But in terms of Roman Reigns winning the Rumble, of course, it made the most sense for him to go after CM Punk because the story is there and it creates for interesting TV as you're leading up to that match at WrestleMania. And the segments that we have been getting between Roman and Punk have been absolutely phenomenal. Easily the best thing on WWE right now. I know some people are calling CM Punk a little bit repetitive, and I get it. But at the same time, it's CM Punk. Like, this is not a Cody Rhodes scenario where, like, Cody Rhodes, you can definitely feel, like every time when you hear Cody Rhodes speak, like, you kind of feel that in your gut, like, oh, I've heard this time and time again. In a sense, you kind of have that same feeling with CM Punk, but at the same time, for me, CM Punk is just way cooler as not only a wrestler, but as a character. And I've been enjoying CM Punk's work ever since he returned to not only WWE, but ever since he returned to wrestling back in 2021, almost everything that CM Punk has been doing has been fantastic. But in terms of CM Punk and Roman Reigns, again, the segments that we've been getting between both of those men were just balls to the wall, fantastic. Of course, they went personal. A couple weeks prior on Raw, CM Punk made the quote that he was going to bury, Roman Reigns next to his father, and that really left a stench on Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns, everybody expected in this previous segment to really, for Roman to really go deep, because after that second segment that both Roman and Punk had, of course, Roman has a light schedule, and WWE was smart enough to incorporate the Usos because they were upset that, CM Punk mentioned, their uncle. And what happened was, of course, we had a great segment with Punk and the Usos. And basically he was like, I am sorry. And I am sorry that Roman Reigns has treated you so badly. And of course that left a nerve on both of the Usos. And then, as this Raw show started, it was building up towards Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. Roman was like, hey, you do what you got to do. I'm going to do what I got to do. And Roman a lot of people were really disappointed with this Roman promo. It was kind of, again, the same old shtick, but I'm not going to complain like a lot of these other fans, because, again, people need to understand that, we're still a couple of weeks away from WrestleMania. You're not going to give all your eggs into one basket in this promo. You really got to stretch things out. Raw has a show in Madison Square Garden later this month, the end of this month. I assume we're probably going to get a segment between both of those guys as well. We're going to get more segments between these two men. Everybody's like, oh, Roman should have mentioned Larry and all that stuff. And I'm like, guys, give it time. I know you guys are sick. You guys are sick as hell, but give it time. Again, they have to flesh things out. Because again, Roman's schedule is very, very, very limited. So they gotta stretch things out in terms of what Roman is gonna say. But when I watched that segment, was it the weakest out of all three? Yeah, you could say so. But I didn't really see anything wrong with it. I didn't really see anything wrong with it. If anything, I loved that ending. I loved that ending where Roman Reigns essentially, well, number one, I forgot to mention this right in the beginning of that segment. I loved that CM Punk gave a nod to Samoa Joe. I know a guy named Joe who is a real Samoan. That was, of course, a tribute to Samoa Joe, who has a long history with CM Punk. So that was great to see. But but what I really want to talk about was the end of that promo, because the end of that promo was really where things got spicy. In my opinion, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't, but I actually enjoyed it. Basically, Roman Reigns ended up calling Punk old. He said it like that, you're just old. You're just old. And that set a nerve on CM Punk to the point where he just basically punched him in the face and knocked out Roman Reigns. And then the shot of Roman Reigns, after getting knocked out, was just laughing, looking at CM Punk. Could we be seeing, because if you really notice some of the things that Punk has been saying, it's been he's been saying the same old shtick about Roman Reigns, hey, you're this, your cousins, you treated them like crap, all that stuff, the same old thing everybody has heard other people say about Roman Reigns. But then when Roman says something about Punk gets immediately upset, he gets frustrated. In kayfabe, obviously. I feel like WWE is definitely going somewhere. They're really starting to show CM Punk's insecurities in storyline, and I really like that. Could this lead to something big? I don't know, but a lot of people are assuming we're probably going to get a heel turn of some sorts at WrestleMania when it comes to CM Punk. I do not know, but CM Punk definitely looked insecure. He definitely looked insecure out there. He definitely looked insecure out there, especially after Roman called Punk old. But that was pretty funny. But that was a really, really good ending to close out the weakest of all the three Roman and Punk segments. Again, people were complaining about how Roman Reigns is saying the same old shtick, and he needs to say more things. But again, give it time. You can't put your eggs all into one basket. They need to flesh things out. But yeah, that's the world title match for WrestleMania, the main event of WrestleMania 42, and easily the only interesting thing, in my opinion, on this WrestleMania card. Besides Cody and Randy is not a bad match, but again, like Punk and Roman is easily like the match everybody wants to see. We got the WWE Women's title match as Jade Cargill takes on Rhea Ripley. Nobody's really excited for this match. You know, WWE tried to turn something that is allegedly real into a work. From what it looks like, WWE has failed miserably. But we'll see where this goes. Like, this match is basically about who's strongest. Like, that's basically the gist of their promos. Like, who's strongest? I look better than you. I'm strong in it. Like, it's boring crap, and it's really not as interesting. But like, I'm not really as interested in this match. We got the women's world title on the line as Stephanie Vaquer takes on Liv Morgan. Again, not a bad match, but out of, like, again, all of the matches at WrestleMania, this is one of those matches that I just don't care about. And look, I think they're going to deliver a great match. Out of both women's matches, I do believe that Stephanie and Liv are going to be delivering the better match. Considering, as you guys all know, and I've stated this time and time again on this very show, as much as I like Jade Cargill, you have to admit Jade Cargill is still relatively green. Like, she is. She's still relatively green, and she's the women's champion. You know what I'm saying? Stephanie Vaquer is kind of, in a way, the secondary women's champion, but, you know, Stephanie Vaquer has really, you know, proven herself. Like, she's more, in my opinion, she's more like the actual true women's champion than Jade Cargill, in my opinion. Really, the women's world title scene has been way more interesting, you know, than the WWE women's title scene, but that's just me. But Stephanie Vaquer and Liv Morgan, I do think they're going to be delivering a great match. But again, in terms of this, I'm not really that excited about it. Brock Lesnar's opponent. Brock Lesnar is a very interesting topic. Of course, we finally figured out who Brock Lesnar's opponent was going to be. Everybody was, and including myself, was like, oh, what if it's Gunther? What if we get Brock Lesnar versus Gunther? You know, Brock Lesnar versus Gunther is not a bad match. And in terms of the plans that WWE has for Gunther, we do not know what the hell is happening in terms of Gunther for WrestleMania, which to me is a freaking crime. Like, it's a crime considering the fact that, you know, Gunther, you know, has recently, let's be honest, has been on a tear. And this guy is, you know, he retired John Cena, he retired Goldberg, and he retired AJ Styles. And you have no plans for Gunther for WrestleMania. I mean, come on, what are we doing? But there's no plans for Gunther. And everybody thought, like, hey, what if he's the opponent for Brock Lesnar? And that'd be a great match. And it would be a great match. But that's not going to happen. The opponent for Brock Lesnar is actually going to be Oba Femi. Oba Femi actually, of course, the former NXT champion, recently made the jump to the main roster. And you can definitely tell in terms of his presentation and his look and everything that is going for Oba Femi, WWE is really going to strap the rocket behind Oba Femi, and they're going to push him to the moon. You can tell. This guy's a future WrestleMania main eventer. I don't care what anybody says. He is a future WrestleMania main eventer, along with guys like Braun Breaker. These guys are WrestleMania main eventers. But Oba Femi, the way that they executed it, man, with Oba Femi showing up and powerbombing the hell out of Brock Lesnar, it was freaking insane. You had Michael Cole on commentary saying, holy shit, like he was literally saying holy shit on commentary. It was crazy. Now, granted, Netflix censored it, but still, like it was such a great visual to see. But in terms of that, that was basically a fantastic moment, and we're going to be getting Oba Femi versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Now, we're going to stick to Brock Lesnar, and after this, we're going to close out the show. But there's apparently a major issue threatening Brock Lesnar versus Oba Femi and their match at WrestleMania 42. I'm reading this from the takedown on Sports Illustrated. WrestleMania 42 is less than 6 weeks away. And while we know that Brock Lesnar will be competing on the show, his opponent has not yet been announced. And of course, this was before last night's Raw, which of course had Oba Femi show up and attacked Brock Lesnar and basically powerbombed him down to the mat. The Beast returned to WWE on the February 23rd edition of Raw and issued an open challenge for this year's Showcase of the Immortals. He'll be returning to the Red Brand each of the next 5 weeks until one brave soul steps up to accept what Paul Heyman promised would be an epic beating. WWE Creative is reportedly very aware that fans want to see Brock Lesnar take on the 2-time NXT champion Obafemi this April, a showdown that was teased during the men's Royal Rumble match back in January, but there may be a major issue with booking that bout. During the most recent episode of the Self-Made Sessions podcast, insider Ibu, by the way, he's awesome, dig him, claimed that neither Lesnar nor his advocate Paul Heyman are keen on the idea of Brock putting someone over in what could very well be his final WrestleMania match. In a quote by Ibu, he stated this, and I quote, New Jersey and Paul Heyman essentially have communicated to WWE and WWE Creative that Brock should not job until his retirement. That presents the WWE with a unique issue, because Paul Levesque would like to book at some point Gunther versus Brock and Oba versus Brock, but if he books these matches, Brock will lose in both matches, which makes total sense. Why are you going to have Brock beat the up-and-coming star in Obafemi? And why are you going to have Brock basically beat, I don't want to say, I mean, why do you want to have Brock beat an established talent in Gunther? Like, why do you want that to happen? It would make no sense. So this presents everybody with a conundrum. Ibu also reported that this request is why LA Knight's name suddenly emerged as a potential opponent for Brock Lesnar. With this writing, Ibu claims that the creative team has not yet made a decision on who Brock Lesnar is going to wrestle at WrestleMania, which we all know it's already going to be Obafemi. And by the way, I feel so bad for LA Knight. Like, LA Knight, man, has really been getting the shaft when it comes to WWE Creative. He was, man, think about this, Batman 2023, like, LA Knight, even though he wasn't like a world champion, like he wasn't world heavyweight or he wasn't even WWE champion, like he was over with the crowd and fans still love LA Knight. But like, where is LA Knight now? Like, LA Knight really has fallen by the wayside, unfortunately. And you can only blame WWE Creative. You cannot blame LA Knight on that, man. It really does suck. The Beast has competed in 3 matches since his unexpected return at SummerSlam last year. He essentially squashed the retiring John Cena at WrestlePalooza back in September, and then participated in the winning War Games team at Survivor Series before his brief appearance at the Royal Rumble. While there have been rumors that Lesnar wants to retire at this year's SummerSlam, which is going to be taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is taking place at his adopted hometown of Minneapolis, those plans have not yet been confirmed by the company. If he does decide to walk away this year, Paul Levesque's desire to have him face Gunther could finally come to fruition. The ring general has already finished off the careers of John Cena, AJ Styles, and Goldberg. If you already allow me to paraphrase the Hall of Famer's catchphrase here, it would be highly logical for Brock Lesnar to be next. That said, if Lesnar refuses to lose until then, it's possible fans never get to see him battle Obafemi. That is, unless the Beast ultimately slays the ruler. Not sure how well that would go over with the WWE Universe. Okay, so there's been a lot of speculation about Brock Lesnar and how him and Paul Heyman basically do not want Brock Lesnar to lose any match until he retires. And the rumor is right now that his last match is going to be taking place at SummerSlam, which again is going to be taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. What is my opinion on this? Look, you can have Brock Lesnar, like if you're going to have like a Brock Lesnar retirement tour, and I know like the whole idea of the retirement tour has been done to death nowadays. Like everybody wants a retirement tour. Like it's common knowledge of WWE now. It's kind of sad. But in terms of Brock Lesnar, look, you got 2 guys, one guy who is 100% going to be a future WrestleMania main eventer, one guy who is already established on the main event scene in Gunther. You're not going to have Brock Lesnar go over in a match with Obafemi, and you're not going to have Brock Lesnar go over in a match against Gunther. It's just not going to happen. Now, in terms of Brock Lesnar saying, I do not want to lose to this guy, that's wrong, in my opinion. I understand he's in a way an established guy, and in a way he kind of has some pull, but he does not make the decisions. WWE, Triple H, Paul Levesque, he makes those decisions. So I don't know where this entitlement comes from in a sense. I don't know. It makes no sense. And even Brock Lesnar himself, Like, I cannot see Brock Lesnar saying, yeah, I do not want to lose to that guy Obafemi. Like, imagine if he said that. Like, the internet would go crazy because everybody is behind Obafemi in WWE. The machine is behind Obafemi. Why would Brock Lesnar, who is the ultimate businessman, like say, I do not want to put over Obafemi? It makes no sense. Like, I cannot see that being the case. Now, granted, the source, like Ibu from WrestlePeers, like that guy, Ibu, which I'm a fan of, by the way. And, you know, people call him an insider. I also call him a fan as well. Again, take his wording with a grain of salt. Don't just instantly take his word, you know, as factual, because we do not know what is going on behind the scenes. In terms of Brock Lesnar refusing to lose, maybe, you know, if he has a couple of matches with lower tier guys, I would assume, yeah, he would say, yeah, I don't want to put this guy over. I want to go over in this match. Because let's be honest, if you're doing somewhat of a Brock Lesnar retirement tour, now granted, WWE's not marketing it as that. They didn't even announce anything. Like, they didn't even announce his last match being at SummerSlam. Like, we do not know when Brock Lesnar's last match is going to be. We don't. We're just assuming. Considering SummerSlam is taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is his hometown, everybody's assuming that that's going to be his last match. We do not know. But if you're going to have somewhat of a retirement, quote-unquote, tour, and I'm saying that loosely, like, of course, Brock Lesnar's probably going to wrestle some lower-tier guys, and he would want to go over. You'd want to have Brock Lesnar go over in some bouts. But for guys like Gunther and Obafemi, forget about it. He should not go over in those matches. He should not beat Obafemi at WrestleMania. Because if he beat Obafemi at WrestleMania, everybody's going to lose faith in Obafemi. The fans are just not going to care about Obafemi anymore. They're just not. Because you fed him to Brock Lesnar. Gunther as well. Why would you destroy everything that you have established with Gunther by beating Goldberg, by beating Cena, by beating AJ, only for you to feed him to Brock Lesnar? Which we know that match is going to happen. WWE has been wanting for a couple years now to book a Brock Lesnar versus Gunther match. They have. But we never got that match. This year we're finally probably going to be getting that match. You know? Why would you feed a guy like Gunther to Brock Lesnar? Why would you do that? If you fed him to Brock Lesnar and have Brock Lesnar go over, you've basically destroyed everything that you have built about Gunther. You've destroyed everything. You undid everything that you've been doing throughout the past year with Gunther. You have. And again, nobody would have faith in Gunther anymore. Nobody would believe in Gunther. You need to have Gunther be dominant. You need to have Gunther be dominant. You have to. The story is phenomenal as well with Gunther and Brock Lesnar. You know, at one point in time, Brock Lesnar was really dominant. Now he really isn't. Gunther is the new dominant one. But honestly, in terms of Brock Lesnar not wanting to put people over, I believe it to an extent. But in terms of, you know, not wanting to put guys like Obafemi and Gunther over, I can't see that being the case because, again, Brock Lesnar's a businessman. Brock Lesnar's a businessman. He's not stupid. Why would Brock Lesnar do that? Why would he do that? It makes no sense. But if it's a lower card, or if it's a guy that's lower on the card, like, I would understand. But Obafemi and Gunther, forget about it. No, he's not putting those guys over. Or he's putting those guys over. He's putting those guys over. 100%. He is putting those guys over. I 100% see that being the case. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Brock Lesnar. But yeah, that is the WrestleMania 42 card for you guys. And that concludes the WrestleHavoc Podcast on this Tuesday, March 17th, 2026, on this St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Without any further ado, I'll see you guys all next week. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notification. I mean, look out for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast channel, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is yours truly, Flaming Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys all next week. Peace.